Okay,
Yes,
we're going to go to some written ones.
Yeah, aren't you guys tired yet? Don't you want to go home?
If anybody sees me putting questions over here on this pile, it's not because I don't want to have asked that. Some of them he's answered through his speeches. Just a quick one here. What does the Quran have to say about man's relationship with nature, in your opinion?
I'm trying to think about it. I haven't really thought about that very much. I really haven't. You know, it's not something I thought deeply about, so I can't do much on that one. You should honor nature. I know that. You should respect it very much. You know, because the Quran shows that you should have so much reverence for nature. Right. So, you know,
verse 29 of Al-Baqarah says that it was all put here for us, to serve us.
Yeah. So, you know, man should respect nature, be its caretaker, you know, and have tremendous respect for it. You know,
You don't have to answer this. This was probably answered more last night, but you may have something to say. Why do you think some people suffer more and some suffer less? Is it fair?
Yes. No, I don't know really why always some people suffer more, some people suffer less. I think we all suffer quite a bit, you know. At the same time, we have different personalities. Some of us could take more and some of us could take less. It says in the Quran that God tests no soul beyond its capacity, you know. The Quran also says that when we enter the next life, when we arise in the next life, it often compares it to the way we awaken from a dream. It talks about the illusory character of life. It says life is just pomp and illusion. It shows that when the believers arise on the day of judgment and they're asked, how long have you suffered there on earth? They'll say, did we suffer there an hour? Or a day? Or less than that? And those who really know, it says in the Quran, will tell you, you suffered there but little, if you only knew. You know, for a short time, if you only knew. So the Quran, in many, many verses, talks about the illusory character of life. In one verse, it explicitly compares the person the way a person is resurrected on the day of judgment, and the way a person awakens from a dream. When it talks about the day of judgment and when people enter the next life, it says how they come out of their sleeping chambers, how they will swoon and be groggy, how their vision will first be blurred like the way you awaken from a dream, and then it'll become sharp and they'll see the reality. It says that people will, you know, sort of stumble like the way you stumble out of bed in the morning, and then, you know, rush to where they are determined to go, you know, where they ultimately will have to go, and so forth. The images in the Quran, and I believe they're symbolic because it's talking about the day of judgment, something beyond this perception, indicate, and there are explicit statements that indicate, that this life, as real as it seems to us, and it is real, will seem when we enter to the next life very much like a dream, like awakening, say, for example, from a dream or a nightmare. You know? So that all the suffering we went through, all the pain we went through, all the agony we went through will suddenly seem like it's just a distant and vague, harmless memory. Are you following me? Because, you know, when you're living in a nightmare, when you're having a nightmare at night, and you're living it, and your heart is beating 1,000 beats a minute, and you're suffering through that nightmare, and you're in a panic, and etc., and you awaken from that nightmare, and suddenly you're still nervous, and then you realize you're awake, and you're in the greater reality, and you say to yourself, oh my God, it was only a nightmare, it was only an illusion, it was only a dream. You know, the Quran indicates that when we awaken in the next life, our experience will be very similar. All the pain, all the hardship, all the agony will just seem like it was a brief, momentary illusion. Even though it was very real, even though it shaped what type of creature we enter, what type of being we enter the next life as, all the suffering, all the agony that we went through will be erased. There's a famous saying of the Prophet, peace be upon him, that says that when a believer puts his steps into heaven, and he's asked to recall all the suffering that he's gone through on earth, he'll not remember any of it. And when a rejecter of God steps into what faces him in the next life, and is asked to recall all the joys and indulgences and the things he pursued and he enjoyed in this life, he will not be able to recall any of it either. You know? So, in both cases, it'll seem like a distant, vague event. But for those whose balance of goodness is heavy, to use a Quranic terminology, in the next life, when they enter that next life, all the suffering they went through will seem very inconsequential, like awakening from a dream in this life. So that's one thing you have to remember, that regardless of who you are, whatever agony you're going through, right now it seems like there's these great differentials and things like that, but when we enter the next life, it's all going to seem relatively insignificant to all of us. It's all going to seem insignificant to all of us. Second thing you have to remember is that the Quran does tell us that we do face tests in this life. That God does manipulate the human situation, puts us into situations where we're forced to face sometimes hardship, sometimes ease, sometimes we're forced into making critical moral choices. He definitely manipulates the human drama, but he leaves the critical choices up to us. And he said such things like sometimes he brings suffering on those who reject faith so that perhaps they'll use their reason, or so that perhaps they will recall, or so that perhaps they will reflect on their situation. It also says sometimes he brings ease upon them and drowns them in what they're pursuing, drowns them in their lustful pursuits, drowns them in their material pursuits, hopefully so that they'll realize the purposelessness of it, the aimlessness of it, the agony of it, the chaos of it. Again, so that perhaps they will reflect. But regardless of whether you're good or bad, the Quran guarantees it. You will definitely suffer. Because this life, you are going to face adversity, because through adversity, you grow. My high school football coach used to put a placard on the wall, no pain, no gain. If you're going to grow physically, you got to suffer. You know, if you want to become a great athlete, if you want to become physically fit and powerful, you got to suffer pain. No pain, no gain. My high school teachers used to tell me, Jeff, or students, you got to work hard, you got to struggle, you got to sacrifice, you got to do everything you can, study hard, work hard. I know it's not easy, you got to do it, but to grow intellectually, you got to pay the price, they used to say. Well, the Quran says that the same laws of cause and effect, the same way God has measured the universe, to use a Quranic terminology, in terms of our intellectual growth and our physical growth, any type of growth applies to spiritual growth as well. No pain, no gain. You know, you can't grow in mercy if there's not suffering, if you know no suffering. You know, you can't grow in compassion if you don't know suffering. You know, you can't reach out to others if there's no suffering about you. You know, so it's an essential element of our growth. I think I said a lot about that last night, so I'll cut it there. I got carried away, sorry.
It was a good question.